The epicenter for this final 7-year period will be the city of Jerusalem, but the whole world will be affected. At the end of the 7 years, Jesus will defeat Satan and the forces of Antichrist in the battle of Armageddon, and the millennial reign of Christ over the earth will begin. But first, the seals on the seventh seal scroll must begin to be loosed. This is the heart of our study today. And I saw when the Lamb opened.
Hey, Dave.
Go ahead.
Yeah. For the past couple minutes, we had a hiccup in the internet, so I don't know how much of that introduction everybody saw. So let's do. I'm going to do a real brief recap, if that's all right, and you can fill in any pieces I missed.
That's fine.
We know that the book of Revelation is about the end times. It's talking about what's going to happen at the end of this age. And one of the things that's going to happen is God is finally going to judge. He is the judge, and the judge will finally give his judgment. And the judgment is there's several different judgments mentioned in the Bible. And so we're talking about the 7 seal judgments here. And these judgments are God pouring out his anger and his wrath on mankind. And if you notice, the vast majority of or a lot of these is just letting man be man. And the judgment, like for instance, the Antichrist, and war and famine and pestilence, all those things flow naturally from human beings acting as human beings. So, is there anything else in our summary that we need to add before we go on?
No, I think that pretty much covers. The Lord's judgment is going to come at the end of all this when he defeats Satan, and his judgment will come upon man at that time. All this is the flow of things through the Antichrist upon the earth for destruction. The Antichrist is not here to take care of us. He's not here to give. He's here to kill and destroy.
Right.
And from my understanding, these judgments were allowed by God, but they're for the destruction of man. And Jesus, God's wrath, will come up on the earth at the end of all this. I don't want to get confused in the things that's going on with this judgment. You understand what I'm saying?
Right. But
so this
I mean,
a lot for the world to see. We think we're going through a lot now. We ain't going to go through nothing compared to what's coming.
Right. I mean, you think this is bad? I mean, yeah, we've got murder hornets and all this other stuff and no toilet paper. But when God starts pouring out his wrath, his anger on this world, when he starts pouring that out, it's going to be really obvious to everybody that something's going on. We read that in our text today.
It's obvious in this, right? In verse 17, when men are going to know that when all this happens, that it's not just a coincidence, it's not just a happening. This is happening through the will of God.
Right.
And they pray, they want to hide, and they can't. There's no place to hide. There's no place to go. But God is allowing this. And the reason I say that is when I read this first verse, maybe you get a little grasp of what I'm saying here. And let me get into it real fast.
All right.
Verses 1 through and 2. And I saw when the Lamb opened of the seal, and I heard, as it were, the noise of thunder. One of the 4 beasts saying, "Come and see." And I saw, and behold, a white horse, and he that sat on him had a bow, and a crown was given unto him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. Who do you think sitting on that white horse?
That white horse is it's a depiction of the Antichrist. And
that's exactly who it is. So he's being released. And God's allowing this to be released. He's being released upon the world at this point. The fact that he hasn't got no arrows with his bow indicates something. We'll get into that in a few minutes. But I had to think about that. God allows everything that happens, and he knows this is coming. And he's put this end time. He's letting the Antichrist have his point. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. The thing is that God will specifically use people to judge people. He'll remove his protection and allow people who are just acting normal to be the judgment of people. I mean, the Assyrian Empire, they they were evil people. They were bent on conquering the entire world, and they were bent on conquering the entire world. They were bent on global domination, and God removed his hand of protection and used them to judge Israel. The same thing with the Babylonians. The Babylonians were bent on conquering everything, and God removed his hand of protection and used the Babylonians as his tool of judgment against Judah. God does that. He just lets people go, and it'll be just the worst thing that could happen is God say, you do it your way, bud. Reminds me kind of the old thing where somebody's like sneaking to smoke, and the parents make them smoke the entire pack of cigarettes. They get so sick of them they never want to do it again. That's what God does a lot of times. He says, you want to do that? Like Israel wanted a king. He says, I'm your king. And I said, well, we want to be like everybody else. And he says, fine, you're going to get a king, and you're going to remember what I'm telling you, that he's going to come, he's going to take your children, he's going to do all this other stuff. It's not going to be pleasant, it's not going to be fun, but the judgment for their disobedience was exactly what they wanted. This evening's sermon is going to be somewhat about that, but the fact of the matter is there's a lot of congregations who they want their ears tickled, so they get them an ear-tickling preacher. And their judgment to big regard is that ear-tickling preacher's there. But God's also involved in this. The Antichrist, this is Satan's answer to Jesus, right? Jesus was the incarnate Son of God. God incarnate, God in the flesh. And this is going to be pretty much Satan in the flesh. He's going to imitate everything God does. And so the Antichrist is the opposite, so to speak, of Jesus. He's going to be Satan running things as man.
Yeah, but the Jews are going
but he wants to be appealing. That's the reason he shows up on a white horse.
Right.
There's a definition for the white horse, and I don't want to get into it. We're going to hit that in a few minutes. But he tries to imitate everything that Jesus does. And he can't imitate what Jesus is. He tries to twist it. Let me move on. The Apostle John was an eyewitness to the things he saw. He said, I saw 35 times in Revelation. And what he saw was the Lamb opening the first of 7 seals. He both saw and heard. What he heard was one of the 4 beasts say, come and see. It was an invitation to look and see. Actually, the word come is in the imperative in the text. So you can say it was a word of instruction, not merely a word of invitation. When John looked, he saw a little white horse. He saw a white horse. He also saw an unnamed rider who had a bow and a crown and was given unto him. And he went forth conquering and to conquer. Perhaps the best commentary on the opening of the first seal is found in Matthew 24:5, when Jesus began to answer the question posed by his disciples, saying, for many shall come in my name, saying, I am Christ, and shall deceive many. The greatest of all false Christs will be the Antichrist. Apparently, the opening of the first seal paves the way for his arrival. The rider on the white horse will have a bow and a crown. He will go forth conquering and to conquer. Since there is no mention of arrows, has been made that his victory will be a bloodless one. He shall come in peaceable and obtain the kingdom by flattery. The unbelieving world will welcome the arrival of the Antichrist and his proposal of peace. However, he is a wolf in sheep clothing. His real intent will be world domination and the annihilation of Israel. And, people won't see that. People are wanting so badly to have peace. They're wanting so badly to have a change. They're wanting things that he's going to offer bad enough that they're not going to pay attention to what's going on, I believe.
Well, but okay, here's the thing. The truth of the matter is not even paying attention. If you got somebody who is a crook or somebody who has got ulterior motive, when a young feller sweet talking a girl, he's not giving her the complete story, if you know what I'm saying. He's got an ulterior motive, and he's not being honest with her, and he's trying to fool her and seduce her, and that's the same model that this fellow's going to do. He's going to come in and promise peace. Go ahead.
What crosses my mind, excuse me, and I'll let you go on, and I was just thinking, and I thought about this, and Jesus tells us that we're not to be drunk, we're to be sober, we're to watch, we're to wait, and we're to watch for his coming. And then you've got this clown stepping in. You know, you think it would be obvious that you would see what's going on if you were looking and waiting. And that was my thought behind that.
I think the Jewish people will think that he is the Messiah.
Did you hear Rebecca? She says she thinks that Jewish people think he is the Messiah.
They're going to totally accept him.
I don't know if that's the case or not, because
I don't think that they will totally accept him, but I think with him coming in and bringing peace, because that's one thing that's going to wind up happening. In order to have world peace, we're going to have peace in the Middle East.
Yeah, the Middle East is a powder keg, and so
and he's going to wind up giving them back the Dome of the Rock, so that they can conduct sacrifices again, and that sort of thing. So right. He is.
And I understand it, but you know, even at that, I shouldn't use the word totally. I think there's still going to be people that's going to get saved after 3.5 years.
Oh yeah, God will have His remnant regardless.
That's not a total exception, but most of the people, the government of Israel, most of the people are going to see him as Christ, I guess.
Well, and the thing is we know the tribulation period starts with the signing of the peace treaty with Israel for 7 years, a 7-year peace treaty, and he's going to be the one signing that peace treaty. He's going to be the one brokering the deal, and everybody's going to think he's such a wonderful, what a wonderful leader, and it says if possible to even deceive the elect. He's a silver-tongued devil. He's got an agenda. He's got all the answers. He's slick. You look at him. He inspires you with confidence and loyalty, and you think this is our guy. This is the guy. He's going to solve the problems. We finally got somebody who's going to take care of things.
But we as Christians know that Jesus is going to come out of the east riding on a cloud. So we know this is not going to be Jesus when this happens. We as Christians, and even the elect, even Christians in Israel, should be able to see this.
But the entire world.
I'm thinking that's the way I you know what I mean?
I do.
Try to deceive it. But I don't mean to argue, but that's just the way when I read this, I think about this. Man, why don't you wake up and look at what's coming? You know what I mean? And when he had opened the second seal, I heard the second beast say, "Come and see." And there went out another horse that was red, and power was given to him. Let me ask you a question. How much time do you think is between these horses and these seals? Do you think one's going to be instantly behind the other? I know that there's nothing on it, but I'd just like to hear your thought.
I don't know the difference. I know that there's a 3.5 year period from when the time that the Antichrist takes over and before there's a tribulation period, then there's the Great Tribulation period. The first half, everything's going to be peace and safety, and the second half is when everything's going to fall apart. So I think between the first and the second seal is going to be about 3.5 years, is my take on it. And then comes the war. So
then they'll come pretty fast after that.
Right, because all these are linked, okay? Here in verse 4, it says, "Red was power given to him to take peace from the earth, that they should kill one another." That's war, and give him a great sword. Verse 5, is famine. He's got a pair of balances in his hand. Verse 7, and the pale horse is death, and power is given him to kill with a sword, and with hunger, and with death, and the beasts of the earth. Then the fifth seal is those who are killed. So during this time period, there's going to be war, and from this war, we're going to get famine. We're going to get pestilence and death, people murdering each other. And then it looks like God's going to even raise up the wild animals against mankind. And then there's going to be the persecution of the saints.
Okay, well, let me get on through this, and then we can. He that sat thereon to take peace from the earth, and that they should kill one another. And there was given unto him a great sword. Verse 3, when the Lamb had opened the second seal, John heard the second say, come and see, as will be seen, each of the four beasts around the throne of God issue the same invitation to come and see in connection with the opening of the first four seals, while each invitation or command, a horse of different color appears. First, a white horse appears, and then a red horse. The red horse and its rider were given power to take peace from the earth. Thus, and that has to be after the end of the first 3.5 years. That would be pretty instant. Thus, the peace that was initialized by the white horse is short-lived. It was a false or counterfeit peace, just like the false Christ who initiated it. Everything Satan does is part of a counterfeit. The only one who can bring in true peace is the Prince of Peace, Jesus Christ. And he's right about there. The fatal peace of the Antichrist will soon be broken. Man will kill one another, as the rider on the red horse is given a great sword. The opening of the second seal compares well with what Jesus said in Matthew 24:6. He said to his disciples, if you shall hear of war and rumors of war, see that you be not troubled, for all of these things must come to pass, but the end is not yet. While it is true that the wars and rumors of wars have characterized the history of man since the time of Christ, the war and rumors of wars spoken here are in the response to the arrival of the red horse and in association with the opening of the second seal. Satan may have lured men and nations with the promise of peace and prosperity, but his ultimate goal is death and destruction, not life and happiness. This is the life of socialism and atheism. It promises one thing, but it's been on another. Terrible things are going on in the world right now, but it is only going to get worse when the horse appears on the world scene. I lost that word. Which men commit against the atrocities which men commit against each other, against one another, will only be multiplied when the second seal. Such is the nature of man. He, like Cain, will rise up against his brother and take his life. Verse 5, the first horse was white, the second horse was red, the third was black. It was the Lamb who opened the first two seals, and it was the Lamb who opened the third seal. It was the third beast who announced the arrival of the third horse. John saw that the third horse was black, and that the rider on the black horse had a pair of balance in his hand. The color black is associated with famine in the Bible. The balance was scales which were used in ancient times to ensure that a buyer was getting an accurate amount of it for his money. Verse 6, John heard the noise of thunder in connection with the opening of the first seal, and he also heard a voice in the midst of the four beasts in connection with the opening of the third seal. The voice is not identified, but the fact that it came from the midst of the four beasts may indicate it was one of them. The voice said a measure for a penny. A measure was a dry measurement, not a weight. In this instance, it was approximately a quart. Wheat was the most important grain in biblical times. It was used for bread and was eaten parched. They talk about corn in the Bible, but what they're really mentioning is the wheat and how important wheat is. Wheat is the most important thing that they had. And they're talking about this is going to be sold for a penny a quart. A quart is equal to what nourishes a man in one day. That's what a man eats in one day. And I think about when I was reading in Matthew that he was telling a story about the farmer that went out to get help, and he was hired for a penny a day. The ones early in the morning, in the afternoon, in the evening, he gave them all a penny. And that was a day's wages back then. So food is going to become so scarce that it's going to cost a man a day's wages just for him, just for one. the way I gather this and understand it. It talks about the price of food going 12 times or more times what the value of it is now. This is how much food's going to rise. The destruction is going to be great. You think about people not working now. Think about when the earthquakes and the wars and everything that's going on, and the food there won't be food available. So this covers the food, and it's going to get outrageous. It says the voice says, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. Barley was a grain known from early times in history. Barley was usually harvested before the wheat and was planted in November or December. Barley was used to feed horses and other stock. It was not normally eaten by the well-to-do, but was considered a food for slaves and very poor who would mix it with wheat if they had it. So the barley was just more or less a filler, was it as nourishing. And the barley is very expensive. The voice also said, and see thou hurt not the oil and the wine. That was very, very scary. So you had to take very good care of that. Keep a close eye on it. You took care of your wine and your oils and stuff. So things are going to become very, very expensive throughout the world. We know that as I read on or as I go on, we're going to find that 1/4 of the earth world will be, the men of that will be killed. 1/4 of the world. That's a lot of people.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's on one region. I'm not saying it's on one area. I wonder if it's worldwide or is it just one regional area that all this is going to occur in.
Well, Dave, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
What do you think will happen in New York City if all of a sudden the lines of supply are broken and they can't ship groceries into the 10 million or 8 million people that live in that city? Where are they going to get their food?
I think there's going to be a lot of death and destruction. People are going to they're going to arm themselves and take what they want if they're not armed already. Our society is a society of arms. We've got the right to bear arms. And I think there's just, you look at the hoarding that goes on here in West Virginia that went on early in this epidemic that we're having. I mean, they bought the toilet papers off the shelf, cartloads full. I've seen it on TV. People had cartloads of toilet paper. I mean, think about that. And this is small and minor compared to what's getting ready to happen.
Yeah.
So, you take New York City where they can't grow food, where, they got the suburbs, I'm sure, but the city itself is not going to have any resources coming into it. These people are going to get mean and violent.
Well, but my point is that when we're talking war, and we're talking war among nations that have nuclear weapons, it doesn't take too long to blow up a few cities and get about 1/4 of the population. But you start having earthquakes and other kind of things, and you disrupt the supply lines. The big cities are going to be turning into death pits where people are struggling for survival. They don't have the food, they don't have the water, they don't have the. Imagine New York City without electricity. I mean, the city could not survive without electricity. Those high-rise buildings don't have natural ventilation. They have machines blowing air into them. If those buildings lose power for long periods of time, they'll become unlivable. So
and I understand what you're saying, and when I go through this, I think about verse 17 and what verse 17 is telling us. The islands are going to sink, some's going to disappear, they're going to move, mountains are going to melt away. It's all going to be a new geographical region. I mean, the earthquakes are going to devastate the whole world. Food's not going to be grown. Cows ain't going to be milked. Animals ain't going to be there. There's nothing but life left and life to take. I mean, that's all that you're going to have because of the total devastation upon the world. You think about earthquakes now, what it does to populations and level homes and cities and little things. Think about a worldwide earthquake and the devastation that's going to occur there. A lot of high rises, I don't think it's going to be there. There's going to be a lot of dead people in this city.
Yeah, I mean, it's not only just the earthquakes and stuff like that, but I mean, with war and all this stuff going on, I'm going to tell you, this is God pouring His wrath out on this world. every time that a little baby has been murdered in abortion, every time that a woman has been abused in the home, every single time that God's name is taken in vain, every time that folks are mistreated because of the color of their skin, all the things that anger God, all the things that disgust God, his wrath is being kindled. And he's going to pay us as a race back during the tribulation. He's going to pay those who haven't accepted Christ back for eternity in hell. So God's wrath is a real thing. If you can't believe in the love of God without believing in the wrath of God.
Well, the most amazing thing about this, and then I read it, it says that the heaven and the moon is going to the moon's going to turn to blood, and the sun's going to, and heaven's going to fold up. God is going to turn his back. He's going to close his eyes. I believe. Think about heaven folding up like a scroll. That's the way this describes it. Think about what's going on. Why is that happening? Why is heaven? And it says because of the things that's going on. I don't think God can look upon it. He don't want to destroy people the way he does, but he's got no choice. And he don't want to look upon this death and destruction that's going on. I might be wrong, and it's just my personal thought. The opening of the third seal compares with what Matthew 24:7, where Jesus said, "For nation shall rise against nation, kingdom against kingdom, and there shall be famine and pestilence and earthquakes in divers places." The result of war is oftentimes famine and pestilence and diseases. This has been proven throughout history and will only get worse when the third seal is opened. The effects of all will be compounded and intensified by devastating earthquakes in various places around the world. History has shown what devastating effects earthquakes can have on population. Verses 7 and 8. And when he had opened the fourth seal, I heard the voice of the fourth beast and said, "Come and see." And I looked, and behold, a pale horse, and his name that sat on him was Death, and he followed, and hell followed with him. Let me ask you a question in this, because I got to this and I had to sit and think about it, and I should have went into it deeply, but it says hell is following him. Is it his job to slay and cast people into hell? He's just plain dead.
Well, so the idea is, who is alive during the tribulation period? The vast majority of the people alive on the planet right now, just right now, not in the tribulation, right. The vast majority of them are unsaved, right? During the tribulation, right before the tribulation, we believe in the rapture, that God is going to take the saints out of this world. The ones who are left behind are almost all, they will all be unsaved at first. There's going to be a remnant that gets saved during the tribulation period, the tribulation saints.
Right, we're getting ready to go into that.
But the fact of the matter is, when these things are happening, these people, when they die, they're going to hell. And
I mean, this writer does nothing but send them straight to hell. I mean, it's hard to comprehend this writer. The other one you can sort of get a grasp on, but this one to me was hard to comprehend. It was hard to get a grasp on. So he does nothing, I don't think, but send people to hell.
But look at what it says. It says that to kill them with the sword, that's from the war, and with hunger, that's from your famine, and with death, and with the beasts of the earth. So these folks there's diseases. Imagine what New York City will be when their sanitation system breaks down and you have millions of people going to the bathroom everywhere. The disease is going to be rampant. There's going to be people getting sick and dying. The hospitals will be overloaded. It'll be like a post-apocalyptic zombie movie. But the fact of the matter is, so one thing to remember is hell's a real place, okay? And until Jesus rose from the dead, hell contained all the dead, all those who died in faith, looking towards the cross, went to Abraham's bosom, and were in relative comfort and security. We see that from the vision, or from the story Jesus told about Lazarus and the rich man. But hell had two compartments. And so when it's saying hell, there's an implication in the word of hell, just meaning the abode of the dead, right? Now, this is written after Jesus. This is the last book that was written. Is written by John on the Isle of Patmos. So at the time this was written, the saved folks don't go to hell. We're going to see that immediately because
right. That's right, and I understand that. I want to read this. It's called Man in my book here, and it gives me some breakdown. And it says, "Come and see the rider on the pale horse." And I'm trying to understand this rider. I know he casts. Listen. It says the yellowish green horse was picturesque of the color of a decomposing corpse. It has also been used to describe the bleached look of a person struck with terror. When applied to an actual horse, the color might describe a sorrel horse or a light bright chestnut colored animal. Said horseman is given the power to strike literally terror in the hearts of his enemies and consequently pronounce death upon them. Death and Hades, the grave, characterizes the horseman in such a way that upwards of 25% of the population will succumb to his dread. The first three I can sort of comprehend, but this is the one I'm having problems getting a grasp on. So,
like I said, the idea there is that when it says hell, it's talking about the abode of the dead, right? It's talking about where dead folks get to, I mean, you could say grave. Like I said, in the Old Testament, and in Jesus' time, everybody went to the same place. They all went to the abode of the dead. And there's two different compartments. These folks who are dying, they're not saved, so they're going to hell. Now, the word grave and hell are not the same. They don't mean the same thing.
Right.
And the more modern Bibles, they want to do away with the word hell. They don't like it. They'll put Sheol or they'll put Hades or something like that. That's not what the Bible says.
The thing that got me, I guess, and let me read this one way. It says, this horseman, in such a way that upwards of 25% of the population will succumb to his dread. The other ones kill and destroy. The sword, the pestilence, the destruction, all that kills. But he is the one, I guess, that pronounces to him that you're going to hell. That he sends him straight there. I'm just having trouble getting a grasp on this one.
And just remember also, hell is a temporary holding place. Hell is like the county jail. When you do something wrong and you get arrested, I've never been arrested, so I can only go from what I can see from off TV. But when somebody gets arrested, they take him, they arraign him, they go to jail, and they stay in jail until it's time for the trial. Then when they have the trial, then they go to prison, right? Hell is the equivalent to the jail. It's a temporary holding place for those who die without Christ until God judges them. And then when he judges them, he's going to pronounce sentence, and the sentence is going to be the lake of fire. Everybody who's in hell, every single one will be found guilty, because the reason they're there is because they're guilty. We were talking about this yesterday. We were walking through Point Pleasant yesterday, and Benny saw a bail bondsman, and he's like, "What's bail?" So I had to try to explain to him what bail was, Dave. I said, we assume that people are innocent until they're proven guilty. He goes, "I thought it was the other way around. You assumed that they were guilty until you proved them innocent."
We're in America. That's the way.
But the point of it is that God doesn't presume anything. He already knows the answer. Think about it. When you got arrested, if the cop knew with 100% certainty whether or not you did the crime, and everybody knew who was involved with it, the trial would be a formality. And so that's exactly what's going on here. God is putting these folks in hell. We better hurry up because we got about 10 minutes, maybe.
Okay, let me go through this real fast, and I want to finish this up. It says, death and hell followed with him. John went on to say the power was given unto him over the fourth part of the earth, and that's what I was wondering if it's one part. To kill with sword, and with hunger, and with death, and with the beast of the earth. So I'm going past that. Jesus said, "For then shall the great tribulation, such as was not seen since the beginning of the world to this time, no, nor even shall be. And except these days shall be shortened, there shall no flesh be saved. But for the elect's sake, those days shall be shortened." The word translates tribulation can also be translated persecution. Satan has attempted many times in history to extinguish the Jewish race. The Holocaust is about to be seen, and its collaborators succeeded in killing some 6 million Jews, men, women, and children. Yet Jesus' statement is the verse about the statement in the Revelation 6:8 indicates something even more hideous lies ahead. And let's look at that. And when he had opened the fifth seal, I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held. And they cried with a loud voice, saying, "How long, O Lord? How holy and true doest thou not judge and avenge our blood and them that dwelleth on the earth?" And white robes were given unto every one of them, and it was said unto them that they should rest yet for a little season, until their fellow servants also and their brethren should be killed as they should be fulfilled. He's telling them here that they want a vengeance, and these are the people that is in Revelations that's in this time period that's got saved, and that's already died, I guess, in the 25% of the world that has been destroyed. And he calls it, he gives them white robes, he tells them, hey, he says, just rest for a little while. We still got a little more work, basically, to do. There's a few more people that's going to come, and we got to give them time to come before I exact my vengeance upon the earth.
If you look at verse 9, it's not that they were killed in the cataclysm. They said, "I saw under the altar the souls of them that were slain for the word of God and for the testimony which they held." In other words, these weren't just people who died generally. These are people who were executed because they were Christians. They were martyrs. You know, I believe that there's going to be a great persecution. Anybody who's right now, if you say you're a Christian, they can say, well, you're not fit to be a public official. You're not fit to be this, or you're not fit to do that. If somebody says they spank their children, there's been folks who said, well, if you spank your children and you follow the Bible's teaching, then obviously you've already admitted to abuse. I mean, it's going to get a lot worse. But I think these people are the ones.
And I understand it. Let me go back and ask you a question. From the time that the Antichrist took over, the white horse appeared and the Antichrist came in. And, I made a mistake. Well, earlier that Israel had totally accepted him, but Rebecca reminded me that they didn't. Would this be the same remnants of the people that rejected him from the beginning as not being the living Christ?
Well, we're gonna see that there's 144,000 Jewish virgins who go out and start preaching, and
right, that's coming up.
And I believe that what we're seeing, a lot of the Bible, there's like a telescoping where it says, "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth," and then the next chapter tells you how He created the heavens and the earth. You know what I mean? Kind of fleshes it out. So in this case, I believe what we're seeing is God's laying out these judgments, and later we're going to be getting some more details inside of them. But I believe that what's going to happen is that these 144,000 men are all going to be like the Apostle Paul. They're going to rise up and they're going to be preaching the gospel, and thousands upon thousands, maybe even millions will get saved during this time. And when they get saved, they are now an abomination against the people who are running things, who are completely anti-God and anti-Christ and anti-everything. And so they're going to try their best to kill off as many of the servants of God as they can. Today, we've got two groups of people in this world. Those that believe in God and those that don't. And those that don't, the ones that are of the elite right now, they can't stand anything about God. They despise it. So we've got about 2 minutes, Dave.
Okay, let Let's, yeah, you're right. I'm looking at the 144,000, and we talked about that in chapters past a couple months ago when we was studying the prophets. So that's going to come true. We know where they're going to go. And then the sixth seal was open, and beheld, he had opened the sixth, and lo, there was a great earthquake, and the sun became black, sackcloth as hair, and the moon became as blood, and the stars of heaven fell to the earth, as a fig tree casts her, and the scrolls rolled together, every mountain and island were moved. He talks about all this, and people know. People are trying to hide from all this in the mountains. They're trying to hide from all this. They know it's Christ. You talk about the Lord turning these beasts against us. It says the beast that maybe the beast he's talking about it will be the rats. The rat population carries so many different diseases and will become so great in it. It's just a rat bite will probably kill a man. So, you know, we have to think about the beast that he's talking about, and this might very well be small beasts. Because all the great beasts that kills men and eat men, all of them are gone. Most of them are gone.
Well, Dave, what's going to happen with these people that have the little chihuahuas and all that who haven't been able to feed the dogs in 3 weeks? The dogs may turn on their owners and eat the owners.
And it could very well be these smaller beasts. It's not going to be great beasts. It's not going to be big animals or dinosaurs or stuff that it very well could be the small beasts that we've got to look out for. But anyway, there's a lot ahead of us coming up as a nation, as a world. It's coming up. It could very well be on us at any time. I just want to thank the Lord Jesus Christ for the opportunity that He gave me and for what He's did for me, preacher.
All right, Dave. Well, we'll see you in about 5 minutes when church starts.
All right. I'll see you then.
All right, buddy. Bye-bye. And once again, I want to invite you back. We'll be back in about 5 minutes with morning worship service. God bless you, and good night. Good morning.